Welcome to Village Talk Podcast with hosts Cortland Jones and Shauna Felton King. Village Talk highlights the views and voices of the community. And now your hosts, Cortland Jones and Shauna Felton King.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome again to Village Talk, where we highlight the views and the voices of our community. We are excited again to have you join us. My name is Cortland Jones, and my co-host is Shauna King, and we want to thank you for joining us again. Say hello, Shauna, to everybody.
Hey, Cortland, it's always a pleasure. Excited for our next episode of Village Talk.
Yes, I'm excited too. And real quick, we just want to thank you for sharing your husband with us on our last broadcast. I was just riveted. I really enjoyed listening to him talk.
And it's funny because we've been married for almost 17 years now. And even while I was listening to him on our last show, it was I was learning more about him myself, because some of the questions you asked, I was like, oh, I didn't realize he knew every single male teacher that he had in his life. So, I definitely want to say to anybody who missed that show that we did, that last podcast, to definitely check that out, because it is definitely worth the listen with Dr. Mark E. King. So definitely check that out. I'm glad that these sessions are something that people can go back and look at.
So we are excited because we also now are addressing a real tough subject that we know is difficult for everybody to have. And our topic today is about social justice. We are equally excited to have today's guest join us. Her name is Kathleen Arban. Longtime friends of both Shauna and I. We have probably 40 years of friendship between all three of us together.
And that's funny because we're only 20, isn't that right? That's funny considering I'm only 20, right?
Since birth, right?
Exactly.
Kathleen is a licensed clinical social worker. She's also a clinical associate professor. She has been in practice for over 25 years in a variety of settings, including child welfare, community-based practice, and child maltreatment prevention. She teaches primarily advanced practice with individuals, practice with communities and organizations, child welfare, social work practice with children and families, and field education. She also maintains a small private practice specializing in assisting children and adults who deal with trauma, transition, anxiety, grief, and loss. Kathleen has an advanced certification in trauma treatment and is currently working towards a certification in eye movement desensitization reprocessing. In 2017, she served on a task force sponsored by CSWE in collaboration with the National Center for Social Work, Trauma Education, and Workforce Development at Fordham University to focus on developing trauma competencies for the MSW specialization. Currently, she is facilitating a task force on exploring how to create a trauma-informed organization within the School of Social Work. At this time, please welcome to our broadcast, Kathleen Arban.
Woo! Kathleen, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
It's quite an honor.
Thank you so much for coming to sit on the Village Talk couch, we say, and hang out with Cortland and I and just kind of talk about some things. And, our topic today about social justice and, listening to your bio. Wow. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
It was just like, okay, what haven't you done?
Lots.
Yes, but it sounds like
I'm still a student in so many ways.
As we all are. Listen, I'm curious, Cortland and I really know that even coming to Village Talk, this is hard work for us. And I say hard work. This is our passion and things like that. It sounds like you really have work with children and with some sounds like some vulnerable populations. Kind of tell me what's your mission in the work and things that you do. Tell us a little bit about that.
So I kind of came into social work through the back door in a different way than most people. I think I had no idea what social work really was, and I always had an interest in pursuing fairness, and that's really stemmed from my upbringing with my mom. She always taught me that I needed to stand up for what I believed in. And so when I was in high school, I did a lot of volunteer work with individuals and families that were homeless. And so that's how I started to get into the helping profession, so to speak. But I studied political science when I was deciding to go to college because I really thought that we needed to change policy. And I didn't even know what social work was. I think most people have an association with social work related to child welfare. And one of my roommate actually in college was studying to be a social worker, but I was really focused on, how can we make changes? And I had a mentor in college who encouraged me to study conflict resolution, which at the time was very new. And I had an opportunity to study in DC with an international dispute facilitator who had done a lot of work all over the world, but primarily in South Africa. So after I graduated, I was part of a group that formed this nonprofit, and we studied and taught conflict resolution in South Africa. And that was right when apartheid was being dismantled. So for me, that was just a life-changing event. It was a very humbling experience, and, the whole trajectory of my life changed. So while I still had this interest in policy change, I later learned that social work is about both working with the individual, with the family, with communities, and promoting systemic change.
Wow.
So that's kind of how I got into this work.
Yeah, but if you just think about it, Cortland, I don't know if you heard, but she had layers to it because, just starting with the fact that in your home, fairness and standing up for what you believe is right, that grounded you. And then as your career went on, to be able to say the different experiences, I think sometimes we can all say, this is what I want to be when I grow up. But sometimes, I truly believe that God kind of leads you on a path. And that path starts in an early age, but then you just never know where it may go because, did you know that one trip to South Africa would really kind of change your view or open your eyes up to so many things? It sounds like it really did.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I had no idea. And, and just the more I learn that I need to learn.
I think that's smart. That's how the people who really know that they're smart know that they don't know everything, and there's always so much to learn. And when Cortland and I were thinking about this show and thinking about the work that you do, and this term social justice, as a social worker, and we know how important that is. Is there a clear definition for social justice? What does that mean when we say social justice? So from a social worker's lens or from your personal view, what does that mean?
I think there's some disagreement in the field of social work about what social justice really is, because we've created sort of this false dichotomy within our profession where some people work with individuals, some people work with families, some people work as organizers. But really, what always drew me to the profession was that you're supposed to work at all different levels, right? Because an individual lives within a family, within a community, within a system.
Right.
And social justice is really about providing those opportunities to everyone within the society, those equitable opportunities. So looking at what kinds of systems operate in our lives and how we can create those same basic rights, opportunities, privileges, and benefits for all. So that would be my definition of social justice.
Awesome.
I think that, Shauna, as you had mentioned, what I'm hearing is eye-opening just as I was listening to Mark in the previous broadcast. I'm learning things about Kathleen that I think are just eye-opening. The whole experience in South Africa is just, it's like, wow. And just wanting to know more about that. Real quick, before we go to break, Kathleen, when you hear the term white privilege, what comes to your mind in response to that?
So I first heard the term when I was actually studying social work in the early 90s. And I identify now as a white woman. At the time, I didn't. And it hasn't been until relatively recently that I took on that identification. But I grew up like knowing about my Irish heritage because my dad was very much into genealogy and that was his area of focus. But white privilege is really, all of the opportunities that are afforded to me and conferred upon me just because of the color of my skin. And that has been a history that many people who are white have difficulty, understanding and grappling with. And I think that's kind of what we're seeing today with a lot of people responding to Black Lives Matter with, All Lives Matter and White Lives Matter. So for me, what privilege is, knowing Peggy McIntosh actually wrote a really good piece back in the early 90s called Unpacking White Privilege, the Invisible Knapsack. And it's basically, as a white person, all the things that we take for granted as what is considered normal. Like I can go to the store, I can not worry about, somebody thinking that they're going to follow me. I can get pulled over by the police and not worry that it's because of how I look. I can do a variety of things as a result of just being white in this society that other people don't have. And I think that's really challenging for a lot of white people to come to terms with.
So we thank you again, Kathleen, for joining us because we know this conversation is both difficult and yet at the same time it's necessary to have, and we appreciate you being willing to lend your voice to it. And so now we are getting ready to take our break, and we hope everybody will continue to stay with us. On the other side, we're going to continue our conversation with Kathleen. This is Village Talk, where we highlight the views and the voices of the community.
Feature your business with a full or half-page ad in an upcoming issue of Vision and Purpose Lifestyle Magazine. Advertise your business, book, or event and reach potential clients. Vision and Purpose Lifestyle Magazine covers and features stories in business and entrepreneurship, education, performing arts, sports, community outreach, fashion, travel and real estate, health and wellness, and more. Contact us at info@vnpmagazine.com, or you can reach out to our Director of Sales, Ms. Karen McConnell-Jones, at 202-904-1000. Vision and Purpose, inspiring our community.
And we are back, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to Village Talk. Shauna, what you think? We've been having a discussion with Kathleen. Kathleen Arban is with us for those who might be just joining in. And our topic has been about social justice. Shauna, what are your thoughts so far?
I'm just enjoying this conversation. Kathleen, thank you so much for being with us because, the term we left off talking about white privilege. And, I'm thinking, 6 months ago or maybe a year ago, is that a term that we would have ever even heard of? Is that something that was common? And now listening to you share how it is something that has to be said and that some people are uncomfortable with that, but really diving into what do we mean when we say that there is white privilege. And you were sharing with us about the Peggy McIntosh article that talked about that. I just appreciate your vulnerability and openness in sharing with that. And just, I want to, Cortland, we, here